Roll call.
Carlson.
Here.
Maniscalco. Dingfelder. Citro.
Here.
Vieira. Miranda.
Here.
And Goose.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you. All right, item number 86, ABA hearing. City staff?
Good evening, council. My name is Kendrick Donnelly. I'm with the Assistant City Attorney. And I'm here along with Simone Savino. We're here on behalf of the city presenting for the hearing on the suspension of the alcohol beverage permit at Ybor Grocery Stop located at 3401 North 15th Street. And but as a preliminary thing, we created evidence binders for all of the councilmen. Hopefully they're all up there and everyone sees them. Just want to make sure.
Come up just a little bit to the mic so we can hear you.
I apologize.
There you go.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody had a copy of the binder, the evidence binder in front of them. So there will be references to the binder in the PowerPoint presentation, and the specific tabs will indicate the documents that we're referencing. So if you want to have your eyes on the specific document, it'll be available for you there as well. And Councilman, as we said, we're here for the public hearing on the consideration of the suspension of the sale of alcohol at Ybor Grocery Stop, again located at 3401 North 15th Street. Now, you all have heard hearings like this before. Those are dealing with either Mole y Abuela or with the mask issues. Those were for either restaurants or for bars. This is specifically for a convenience store. So it's a little different, and there are some criminal violations that are included in the allegations that we're presenting today. So it's a little different than the ones that you heard previously, but as far as the sanctions are the same thing, and we're going to go through those together. As a preliminary overview, again, it's the hearing on the suspension of the AB permit for Ybor Grocery. Now, this hearing is governed by Code Section 27-318. There is a copy of that in the documents that's located at tab B1. We'll go through that again later. The first thing we're going to talk about after we talk about the code section is the ownership. We're going to present who the business owner is, who the property owner is, so you know the parties involved. We're going to discuss the specific AB permit. That's going to include the state permit from DBPR as well as a local ordinance that grants them the ability to sell alcohol at the location. Then we're going to talk about the notice requirements under 27-318 that we have to provide to those individuals. And then as far as the violations, we're going to start with code violations, and then we're going to move on to criminal violations that are related. There's going to be two sections. One's going to be related to drugs specifically, and the other is going to be related to firearms. The next thing we're going to talk about is prior notice of property violations, because there have been prior instances where they've been notified by TPD that there are issues on the property in an effort to try to remedy those issues, so you'll have information related to that, and we'll also have citizen comments.
Good evening, Council and Chair. Simone Savino, as Kendrick already introduced, on behalf of the City Attorney's Office. Right now, in front of you, I'd like to direct your attention to the slide, the first slide here, which provides a map of the area surrounding Ybor Grocery. You can see that Ybor Grocery is located at 3401 North 15th Street, and this is in the intersection of North 15th Street and East 22nd Avenue in East Tampa. To orient you to this neighborhood, and for context, this intersection is located about 1 block south of the Orange Grove Magnet School, which is a middle school with over 400 students that has been in the neighborhood since 1926. It's less than a block from Next Generation Kids Early Childhood Learning Center, which is located on Sanchez Street. That's a pre-K childcare facility. It's also located about 4 blocks south of Reagan Park. Most importantly, though, what I wanted this visual to provide for you was that this location is a common corridor. 15th Street is a common corridor. However, Ybor Grocery is almost entirely surrounded by residential areas, which you can see depicted on this map. Ownership. 3401 North 15th Street has been owned by Rita Gonzalez Fernandez since December 17th of 2003. If I can direct you to Section A of your binders, it's tabs 2 through 5 that I'm currently speaking about. The property has been leased to Mohammed Soba since June 1st of 2014. Mr. Soba has run his business, Ybor Grocery Stop, at this location since that time, and he's operating as the registered agent of Ybor Grocery Stop. At this point, I'd like to call to the mic Eric Cotton, who's our Development Coordination Manager for Development and Growth Management Department. He's going to orient you to the AB permits that currently exist for this property, and I believe he is present on the second floor.
You recognize
Yes,
Scott?
ma'am. Good evening, council. I have Eric Cotton, Development Coordination. I have been sworn. Just a very brief summary on the zoning issues and then the approvals for the sales for alcoholic beverages. The property itself is zoned CI, commercial intensive, which would allow for the use of a retail store that does sell convenience goods. So the underlying zoning allows for the use of the property. The building was constructed in the mid-40s, back in 1946. And City Council approved the location for sale of beer and wine, which is a 2 APS from the state in 1979 under file L7913. It was adopted by ordinance 7265A. The current state license, the last one that staff has signed off on for this date, was signed off on in 2014. Does council have any questions regarding the underlying zoning issues?
Thank you, Eric.
All right, thank you.
These tabs, or the information that Eric just presented, is located in Section A, tabs 6 and 7 of your binders, just in case you wanted to flip to those direct sections. Okay, so alcoholic beverage license suspension hearings are governed under Section 27-318C of the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances. This specific subsection, C of 27-318, speaks to the revocation or suspension of sales of alcoholic beverages for cause. Under this specific subsection, in order for City Council to suspend or revoke an alcoholic beverage license, you must first make the determination that a property owner, the holder of the alcoholic beverage license, operator of the establishment, or any agent or employee thereof has been found to have violated or have been convicted of one or more of the 14 qualifying criteria that are then listed as subsections A through N. In this case tonight, we're directing your attention to subsections B, C, and D specifically. And they're before you on the screen, so you can follow along. Subsection D speaks to the maintenance of a nuisance on the property. Subsection C speaks to engaging in or permitting disorderly conduct on or about the property. And subsection D speaks to the operation of the establishment in a manner that repeatedly or on an ongoing basis has negative secondary effects on the surrounding property. These negative secondary effects can include violations of city code, ordinance, or state law relating to noise, parking, or trash and debris after having had reasonable notice to terminate or correct any of those problems. The next slide speaks to the nuisance definition. This is here so that in understanding subsection B, which was just before you, it includes this definition of nuisance, because what we're looking for is any kind of said term as defined by our code or common law. So this one is just specifically pointing you towards Windward Marina versus City of Destin. This is a 1999 first DCA case, and it talks about how the term nuisance encompasses certain identifiable harms, including the impact of a particular land use might have on the safety of the public as a whole. And that's basically one of the factors we're talking about tonight. That's just a definition for nuisance that you can keep in the back of your mind. Flipping back to this rule here, which is also laid out for you guys in tab B1. This evening, you're going to hear evidence that the property owner, as well as the operator of the establishment, has violated subsections B, C, and D. And once again, that's nuisance, disorderly conduct, and these secondary negative effects in the neighborhood. And what we're going to do after we put on that information for you is we're going to be asking you to make a finding that these subsections have been violated. And then after that finding, we're going to be asking you to suspend the ability for this establishment to sell alcohol for 30 days. Okay, notice requirement. This is pointing you to 27-318D. So we were previously talking about 27-318C, but 27-318D is the notice requirement for, going forward with a hearing such as this tonight. And it requires that notice of an alcoholic beverage license suspension hearing be sent by certified mail to both the property owner and business owner at least 30 days before the hearing. In this particular instance, in complying with this requirement, both the property owner, Rita Gonzalez, and the operator of the establishment, Mohammed Soba, they received 50 days notice before today's hearing. Excuse me, 56 days notice before today's hearing. Additionally, just to make sure that they were fully on notice of what was going to be happening, our personal detective of TPD, he provided hand delivery of both the original notice and then our amended notice directly to the property owner and the business owner. And then that information is in tabs B, section B, tabs 1 through 4. So at this point in time, we will begin establishing the first of those three subsections we discussed. We're going to discuss now the maintenance of a nuisance on the property and the negative secondary effects on surrounding property by calling to your attention some of the previous code enforcement violations that occurred. So I'd like to, at this time, call Detective Curtis Williams with the Tampa Police Department to the microphone. I believe he's on the second floor.
Good evening, Detective Curtis Williams. I've been sworn.
And Curtis has been sworn, thank you.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'll give a brief summary of my experience with this
CCTV, can you turn this volume up so the council can hear?
Good evening. Is that a little better?
It's a little better.
Okay. I'll give you a brief of my experience with this particular location. I've been in law enforcement for 24 years, the last 14 with TPD. My first several years with TPD was patrolling East Tampa on the streets at night. And during that time, this particular location, intersection, was not synonymous with law enforcement. It was not a frequent location for calls. Upon my return 2 years ago to East Tampa, I would be confident in saying that there's not an officer that works in East Tampa that is not familiar with this location just due to the activity that's going there. I currently work alongside the East Tampa CRA, where we work to reduce the slum and blight. Blight commonly being referred to as anything that spoils or damages. I believe this business meets that criteria. The business is open 24/7, operates more like a club than a convenience store, and the premise first really came to the attention of law enforcement in a more severe sense in June of 2020. When officers were called to that location for several hundred subjects being about the property and the intersection. It took more than 100 officers responding to help disperse the crowds that were there, and resulted in the injuries of 2 police officers. Due to the persisting activity at the location and my current assignment, I always try and find a solution to a problem at the most lowest level possible. So at this point, I went and I actually met with Mohammed Sabo at the business location along with Code Enforcement Officer Crystal Ramos. We had a conversation. We explored the business inside, and Mr. Sabo went outside, and we discussed the problems, pointed them out, and made some mere suggestions at that time of ideas that could perhaps alleviate the ongoing problem. I don't have any other way to put it than I left there feeling like it was a lot of lip service. So I returned shortly after, approximately 30 minutes after, and again, the crowds were back hanging out front, leaning up against the wall, which is commonplace any time of day, even as early as 7:30 in the morning. So the owner of the property was also notified on that day. I believe Officer Elmore can speak more to that. of the ongoing problems. Today, you're going to hear from officers, code enforcement, and the public on the concerns of this business if it continues to operate with this dangerous protocol. This business, like was told to you, is 1 block away from a daycare center, 2 blocks away from a magnet school. And I just really want to stress that although this is the first time council is hearing this, code, police department have worked diligently on trying to remedy this situation with the effort to try and not be here today. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Thank you, Curtis. At this time, we're going to call up Crystal Ramos. She's one of our certified code enforcement officers with the Neighborhood Enhancement Department. She's going to walk you through some of the violations that have previously been issued against this property. And she's also going to present some photos. The photos are going to be on the screen, but it might be difficult to see them, so I'm going to direct you to it's section C, tab 3. And all the photos are going to be in the same order that Crystal is presenting. So if you want to open up section 3, section C, tab 3, that way you can follow along with what Crystal's about to explain to you guys. And I believe Crystal's previously been sworn.
Yes.
You may proceed. Ms. Ramos, you may proceed.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, City Council. My name is Crystal Ramos. I'm a certified code enforcement officer with City of Tampa Neighborhood Enhancement Division. I've been a code officer since 2014. I've been an officer in District 3 since 2019. I have been certified by the ICC International Code Council since 2016. On February 17, 2021, Detective Williams and I conducted an inspection along with 2 other state of Florida agencies, which were Alcohol and Tobacco and Florida Lottery Division. Upon inspection, the property was found to be in violation for the following City of Tampa code sections: 19237-3A, G, floors, walls, ceilings; 19237-3, IJ, electrical; 1952, operation of a business where wind regularly carries refuse into the street and fencing requirements; and 5-105.1, building permits required. A notice of violation was issued for said violations. The notice was generated and sent via certified mail to the property owner on February 17, 2021. The certified mail was received and signed for on February 22nd of 2021.
And hang on, Crystal, I just want to let everyone know once more, she's now going to be speaking specifically to section C, subsection 3. So you can follow along with those photos as she's speaking to them so you can understand what's going on. Okay, sorry, go ahead, Crystal.
No problem. Photo 1 is a photo of the exterior front entrance to the property known as Ybor Grocery. Photo 2 is a photo depicting the extension of the building, roofing, and electrical that was added to the original structure installed with no permit. Photo 3 is the second photo showing where the unpermitted addition is also in violation of zoning setbacks per City of Tampa code. The structure is within 5 feet of the neighboring residential property, which is in violation of zoning setback regulations. Photo 4 is showing a new AC unit with electrical connections, which was installed at the rear side of the exterior building. The AC unit and electrical was not installed to code and no permits were obtained. Photo 5 is a photo of the exterior west wall of the building. This wall is behind the front counter where service is provided to patrons. In this photo, you can observe the electrical box with excessive wiring that is being routed behind another wall and circumvented through the ceiling, which is not to city code or permitted. Photo 6 shows the installation of a commercial exhaust hood range that was installed at the first cooking and preparation area located in front of the store next to the sales counter. There's a total of 2 unpermitted cooking stations in this building. The area in this photo is where all the deli sandwiches are prepared and sold to patrons. Photo 7 is a close-up photo of electrical wiring conduits installed that are being circumvented through the ceiling above cooking station 1. Photo 8 is another close-up photo of the electrical receptacle and conduit wiring installed with no permit. Photo 9 is an interior photo taken facing the south side of the building, which leads to the unpermitted second cooking station and unpermitted back office depicted in the unfinished doorway with exposed framework, which was added without a permit. Photo 10 is an interior photo showing the east side of the building where the second illegal cooking station was installed. In this photo, you can also view the unfinished roofing, AC ductwork, electrical wiring, and conduits that were installed without permits. Also, to the left of the photo, you can view the unfinished wall addition and exposed framework. Photo 11 is another view from the second cooking station, which shows two separate sinks with plumbing connections that were newly installed without a permit. Photo 12 is an additional interior photo next to the second cooking station, which shows the installation of a water heater, a second commercial exhaust hood range to the right of the photo. Also, unfinished framework can be viewed along with numerous exposed electrical wiring and plumbing near the unfinished ceiling installed with no permits. Photo 13, this is an interior photo of the second cooking station depicting the second exhaust hood range installed for the deep fryer and stove. The unfinished ceiling can also be seen along with exposed electrical conduits and wiring. Photo 14, this is an interior photo of the second cooking station showing the installation of a deep fryer. The fryer is directly attached to the ventilation ducts and electrical connections, which can be seen running near the edge of the ceiling. Photo 15, this is a close-up photo taken above the second cooking station depicting the unfinished ceiling, plumbing, framing, and electrical installed with no permit. Also, the ducts shown in the photo are connected directly to the deep fryer, which is being ventilated out to an unknown area. Photo 16, this is a close-up photo, shows the original plumbing to the building in addition to the new and unfinished plumbing connections that were installed behind the two sinks in the second cooking area with no permits. Photo 17 is a close-up photo of electrical conduits and wiring being circumvented through the ceiling in the back office. Also, a newly altered entrance that was installed with no permit. Photo 18. This photo was also taken in the back office where an electrical receptacle and conduit were installed and are being circumvented into the ceiling with no permit. Photo 19. This exterior photo shows excessive and overflow of trash and debris facing North 15th Street, which directly affects oncoming traffic, pedestrians, and neighboring residential properties. Photo 20, final photo of trash and accumulations which can be viewed from the residential neighbor's front porch and North 15th Street. The trash has the propensity to spread into the neighborhood and city right-of-way. That is the final of the photos. This cause was presented and heard at a public hearing before the building special magistrate on July 14th, 2021. The property was found in violation of City of Tampa codes as described in the original notice of violation obtained by the owner. The respondent for the owner was present at the time of the hearing. As of today's date, August 26, 2021, no permits have been applied for or obtained by the property owner. And I can answer any questions for City Council.
Mr. Rosiccio, you're recognized.
You said this cases came before the magistrate. Was any time given for the property to be brought back into compliance?
Yes, I have the notice here.
Yes, I believe a 60-day timeline.
I'll let her answer.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you.
They have heard on the 14th. So they have until October 13th of 2021 to come into compliance with a $75 per day fine each day after that if they do not come into compliance.
$75 per day
Yes,
until brought into compliance.
right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Ramos, is the photos that you showed, those are all the violations that are under the magistrate's control at this particular time?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, one more.
You're recognized.
What was just the operator of this store cited, or was the property owner cited also?
The property owner was cited. The
So
tenant
only
was
the
not
property
cited.
owner.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman, next we're going to start hearing from TPD officers regarding some of the criminal violations that take place on the property. The first one to testify is going to be Sergeant Robert Partner. He should be on the second floor and he's previously been sworn.
Good afternoon, council. Evening. My name's Robert Partner. I'm employed at the Tampa Police Department. I've been here for 19 years. I'm currently signed as the sergeant to the Violent Crimes Enforcement Group, District 3, which covers all of East Tampa. From May of 2020 to present, our undercover squad has conducted 7 successful narcotics buys for cocaine in this area. In addition to officers responding out to that location 153 times from January 2020 to January 2021. In addition to, officers have responded out to 13 shot spotter activations in the area. And shot spotter activations are, it's a software program that the Tampa Police Departments use. It detects shots that are fired, and officers respond to that area and will give us an exact location where that was occurred. Officers will then try to locate any shell casings, so forth. We get that information within seconds of the activation, which helps with our response, and especially if we find any victims.
And Councilman, there is a slide that depicts the numbers that Sergeant Partner just indicated to you of the 153 total law enforcement events between January 2020 and July 2021. If the slide can be brought up, thank you. There's 7 successful undercover drug buys between May 2020 and January 2021, and the 13 shooting events around Ybor Grocery between March 2020 and July 2021, per ShotSpotter, as he indicated. As part of the investigation, part of the reason why some of these drug buys are taking place is because law enforcement has received several citizen complaints. Now, on the next slide, you're going to see a picture of Ybor Grocery, but there's also audio, and it's actual audio from a 911 call that's come in related to activity taking place at Ybor Grocery. Now, if you turn to tab D1, there's an affidavit from Terry Mola, the 911 records custodian, authenticating the audio, and right behind it, there's an unofficial transcript of the call that you're about to hear. And next, to detail a specific incident at Ybor Grocery is Corporal Ronnie Hill.
Yeah, I just walked out there to the store and get me some coffee
And Corporal Ronnie Hill, I believe, is on the 2nd floor, and she has been sworn.
Have you been sworn?
Yes, sir, I have. Good afternoon, City Council. I'm Ronnie Hill with Tampa Police Department. I am a street corporal for East Tampa. I've been employed 9 years through the city. A year and a half before that as a reserve officer. I've worked majority of my career in East Tampa. I've taken several calls at this business from a patrol officer, from a detective standpoint, and also I want to talk to a case that I was assigned to the SAC squad, which SAC stands for the Street Anti-Crime Squad. And on this particular night, it was March 9th, around midnight, around 12:40 in the morning. We get various complaints for narcotics at the business. That particular night, my squad, we set up around the business because we saw a lot of foot traffic, a lot of hand-to-hand transactions. I was partnered with Sergeant Rhodes. I was a passenger in his vehicle. We parked on the southwest corner, and we had an unobstructed view of the business. This particular business, Ybor Grocery, sits on the northeast side of the intersection. And this particular night, we saw a gentleman wearing a jean vest, light blue shirt, white jean pants, and he made several hand-to-hand transactions by the dumpster that you saw in the photos that were shown previously. So I had about 8 officers on the SAC squad at that time, so we made a plan. So when the gentleman went behind the dumpster, we will all just kind of move in to the parking lot. So at this particular time, he never went back to the dumpster, but he was on the ledge right in front of the business, the first entrance door when you walk in. It's a window ledge, and he had something up there. We couldn't really see what it was, but he was in the process of doing something. So we waited maybe about 10, 15 minutes, and we all just moved into the parking lot. As soon as we went into the parking lot, the gentleman took off, ran into the store. I followed behind him, and he ended up discarding some narcotics into the business. He made spontaneous admissions. Ultimately, he was arrested. We were able to recover the narcotics. It was 6.9 grams of crack cocaine, and it was another gentleman outside who was also selling marijuana, and we were able to recover just about 35 grams of marijuana. Both suspects were arrested and taken into Orient Road Jail.
And counsel, I will say with respect to this case, both of those individuals who were arrested were charged, were prosecuted. I was actually one of the prosecutors on that case. There were convictions for possession of cannabis and felony amount and possession of cocaine that stemmed from this case. The next witness that we have is going to be Officer Wayne Easley, who's going to detail other hand-to-hand narcotics transactions that have taken place on site at Ybor Grocery. He's on the second floor and he has been sworn.
Good evening, Council. My name is Wayne Easley. I've been sworn. I'm a police officer with the City of Tampa, and I have been for 18 and a half years. Prior to that, I had 10 years of law enforcement in the state of Missouri, working undercover narcotics. From February of 18 to February of 21, I was assigned to the tactical narcotics team. Our sole mission was to conduct street-level narcotics buys across the city. My area was District 3 here in Tampa. We sent out an informant on 3 separate occasions. The first time being August 6th of 2020. We purchased crack cocaine from an individual on the property, Ybor Grocery. The second was September 24th, 2020. Again, purchased narcotics from an individual that was sitting on a milk crate there. And then the third time is we arrested an individual that had a local TPD pickup for narcotics. At the time of his arrest, he had a possession of cocaine, marijuana, and methamphetamine on his person. Just to piggyback off what Sergeant Partner said, the 7 buys only reflect from 20 to 21, but we have about 16 buys at this location, all for crack cocaine. nothing less, nothing more. During my tenure for the narcotics unit there, we would change our hours. We would come in and have to saturate the area because it was out of control. You know, large groups of people, shots being fired, people fighting. It really is a nuisance. But that's my involvement. I was asked to speak on these specific cases today, and I'll entertain any questions that you may have.
Any questions, gentlemen? Ms. Carlson, you recognize.
Thank you.
Attorneys shut me down if I shouldn't ask this question, but this is about an alcohol license, right? And so we've heard lots of testimony about drug dealing. Is there some point that I'm just asking an innocent question. Is there some point that somebody will testify to the correlation between an alcohol license and drug dealing?
And that's a great question, Councilman. As far as, and that's one of the things that's detailed in 27-318, in order to suspend the license, these violations don't have to necessarily be related to alcohol sales. Because the sale of alcoholic beverages on the property is a privilege, we want the most responsible community members of businesses to be able to sell alcohol on the premises. And when they're allowing, and you'll hear later, engaging in criminal activity, that's a business that we don't necessarily want to be able to sell alcoholic beverages at the time, and that's why we're bringing this before you all today.
And a follow-up, if I could just, and again, shut me down if I can't ask this question, but is this proposal part of a comprehensive strategy? Because someone testified that they sell coffee there, so if they don't sell alcohol but they sell coffee, could people still sell drugs there, or is there a multifaceted solution to this?
So part of the issue, and you'll hear this later on, is that there have been efforts to get the business owner to cooperate in alleviating some of the issues that exist on the property. Because you'll hear later testimony regarding how much they've been able to do so and how much they've actually done so up to this point. And because of that, we're moving forward on this issue. They would still be able to sell coffee and that kind of thing, but the idea is that we want businesses that sell alcohol to be able to cooperate with law enforcement when there are issues on their property, to take an active role in helping to prevent and alleviate any criminal activity that's taking place on their property. We don't believe that Ebro Grocery has done so, and that's why we're asking for the alcoholic beverage license to be suspended.
And if I can, I'll also add, I'm sorry, I was just going to direct you back to the 27-318C language. So that's 27-318C. That talks about what can go on a property in order for it to be ripe for a suspension or even a revocation of their ordinance. So all the information that's being presented to you now, we believe, falls under subsections B, C, and D. So that's what you're seeing is the violations are for B, C, or D, which speaks to that nuisance, disorderly conduct, or negative secondary effects on surrounding property. So that's how it's being presented to you as best we can.
Counsel, would you say the alcohol sales at this particular establishment causes probably some of the criminal element and effects of the neighborhood and at that location on the property?
And that's definitely a possibility, because one of the allegations and some of the things you're going to see deal with congregating on the property, and the sale of alcohol tends to lead to the increased congregation that fosters some of the criminal activity that takes place. But inherently in 27-318, there doesn't have to be a nexus between the sale of alcoholic beverages and the suspension of the alcoholic beverage permit. They're just criteria that can be utilized in order to effectuate a suspension for cause.
Thank you, sir.
And Council, we've moved on from the drug allegations, and the next section is going to be dealing with violations that involve guns. The first officer to testify is going to be Officer Derek Johnson, and he's on the second floor.
Mr. Chair, if I can.
You're recognized, Mr. Citro.
Thank you very much. Before the next person comes to testify, this is a package sales license, but no consumption on premises.
That is correct.
There is no authorization for consumption on premises, that is correct.
That is correct. It's a 2 APS, so it should just be package sales only.
Good, then I might have some questions for the next police officer. Thank you.
Or on that line, and maybe in your evidence later on, we may see some consumption of alcohol on the premises.
Big old 40 ounces out there. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Hello, my name is Derek Johnson with Tampa Police Department. I've been here employed approximately 12 years. On the night of December 19, 2020, myself and several officers responded to the listed location in reference to shots fired in the area. Post-investigation, it was discovered that there was a group in front of the said location at 15th Street on the east side of 15th and 26th. I had a large group was shooting at the opposite side on west side of 15th and 26th. My involvement here was I was a trained officer at the time, and my probationary officer who had secured the scene to conduct a crime scene log, also to observe the scene where there was numerous shell casings and bullet projectiles found on the ground, to include damage of cars and on the building. We then proceeded to go inside to get the video footage of a camera which points down at the exact scene that we responded for, at which time my body camera was covered up with a jacket due to the fact that it was a little cold. But the audio version could be clearly heard saying where I'm going back and forth with the employees, asking them to get access to the cameras to allow us to see it, to quickly use resources to track down the people that was out here shooting. It lasted longer than was needed for to get to the cameras, and from my experience of being in East Tampa for my 12 years, I've had that happen before, where I've gone in and tried to get cameras, video footage, and it's a back and forth with them. The manager's not there, the camera's not working, don't have access to it, and
Any questions for this witness?
And Councilman, with respect to this particular event, there are photographs that we would like to show from the PowerPoint slide. After the individuals who are on the premises, and these are actions that took place after Officer Johnson was on scene, so they're taking place off site. Aviation got involved, and the individuals, some of the individuals involved were followed by aviation and subsequently located. Multiple of them were located with firearms on their person. Several have been charged. There's been convictions already. Some are still pending. But I will show you photographs from the scene that night. So you're able to see, this is Ybor Grocery. You can see this vehicle parked in front of it. Here, you can see these blue arrows are pointing out shell casings that are located on the property. A total of 15 were located on the property that evening. This is the vehicle that was parked in front of Ybor Grocery. You'll be able to see the bullet hole in the windshield that stemmed from the shooting that took place on the property that night. The next photo, you'll see one of the firearms and bullets that were recovered from one of the individuals who was arrested. This is another firearm that was located in association with this case. And we're continuing to see additional firearms that were involved and located as a result of the criminal activity that took place.
Mr. Chair, may I ask, if I'm able to ask, of all these weapons that were taken and who they were taken from, do you have an age range of the people that were charged with possession of these firearms?
I can get that for you. As far as the number of, there were people, not everyone who was involved was apprehended. There were certain people who were and some who were not. as far as the individuals who were arrested and charged, it'll take me a minute, but I can find that information for
If
you.
you just off the top of the head, just, you know, were these, all right, were the majority of these minors, or were the majority of these of legal age?
Oh, the ones who were involved in this case who were arrested were all adults. There was a subsequent case that involves a minor, but that'll be detailed by Corporal Hart in the next case.
Thank you.
Let me ask this question, Councilman. I'm seeing all these weapons on this, and I'm seeing a crime scene at this store, and I'm looking at the number of complaints you have dictated in your report here, in this book here. So we're here in reference to alcohol suspension, but I want to know, have we started nuisance abatement on this property with the number of weapons I see, the violation in codes that I see on this building? Why are we not doing both angles? Because I see a nuisance abatement case here when I'm seeing all of this activity on this property.
And that's a great question. So this is a property that was actually noticed for their violation, for PNAB, for the Public Nuisance Abatement Board. They did receive a notice on, I believe, February 17th of 2021. Subsequent to that, once the notice is received, that's putting them on notice that they have a right to try to come up with some kind of abatement before it goes before the Public Nuisance Abatement Board. I will say that the property is currently being monitored for any additional violations that qualify that qualify specifically for the Nuisance Abatement Board criteria, because they're very specific criteria with violations that have to occur within a specific time frame. So, and Amari Elmore, he actually deals with that. He's going to be testifying later and can answer specific questions regarding the Public Nuisance Abatement Board, because he is the one who actually presented that letter of notice of violation. But it is being considered for that, and it's continued to be monitored for potential presentation to the Public Nuisance Abatement Board.
I'm seeing a lot of different situations here with this particular owner or rentee of this convenience store here. I see a lot of things going on here. Okay. Ms. Carson, you're recognized.
Two quick questions. One, we often talk at council about, especially at Police Officer of the Month, we talk about the appreciation we have that they put themselves in harm's way. And what you just showed is pretty frightening, and you've only gotten partly through the pictures. I have two questions. The first one is, were any of these weapons pulled on the officers, or were any of them fired onto the officers?
In this case, no. There were none that were involved. There was no shooting of the officers that were alleged or anything like that.
And along the lines of what Chairman was asking, I've seen the lineup of the police officers, and obviously legal department spent a lot of time on this, and I guess code enforcement and others have spent a lot of time on it. Just a rough guess, I bet the city has $100,000 to $200,000 in time in this, plus the lives at risk dealing with it. Does the city have any mechanism to try to get reimbursed from violators like this?
I'll be honest, that's a question I don't have an answer to that question. I'm not sure.
Sorry, I'll ask another time. But just interesting. I mean, it's a huge cost for the city to have to wade through all this. Thank you.
And I will say that it's a priority, because there's so many individuals, and you'll hear it from some of the individuals today. There's so many citizens who are complaining about a lot of the businesses in the area, including specifically this one, which is why this is the first one that was presented. We want to respond to the critiques and the questions from the citizenry when they're complaining about the location. We're gonna try to do whatever we can in order to ameliorate the issues that exist. And this was a mechanism that we thought was appropriate at this point in time.
And just to be clear, what I mean, I think it's a great investment by the city. It's just not fair that the violators don't have to pay for it.
Understood.
And the next case that's presented is going to be from Corporal Taylor Hart. He's downstairs on the second floor, and I believe he has been sworn.
Have you been sworn, officer?
Yes, sir, I have.
Okay, you can proceed.
Good evening. My name is Taylor Hart. I'm a corporal for the Tampa Police Department. I've been with the Tampa Police Department for 9 years. Currently, I'm assigned to the District 3 Street Anti-Crime Squad, which is a plainclothes squad that responds to complaints of narcotics and violence in particular areas. The case that I'm going to speak to specifically today happened on December 27th of 2020. We received an anonymous complaint about 2 individuals on the property of Ybor Grocery selling narcotics. Myself and Sergeant Conrad, who were riding as a 2-man unit in the area, arrived on scene. And as we arrived on scene, those 2 described individuals were still on property. Upon coming in contact with the 2 individuals, one of them was an adult, the other was a 15-year-old juvenile. He had told us that he was currently on active probation. The time of the incident was about 10:15 p.m. Most juvenile probations are right around 7 p.m. With a curfew, so we were well aware that he was past curfew. At that point, he was detained, and Sergeant Conrad asked him if he had anything illegal on his person. The juvenile defendant then stated that he had a firearm. A Taurus, I'm sorry, let me double check the make on it. It was actually a Walter PK 380 semi-automatic firearm, which was in his left waistband. It actually had 1 round in the chamber and several in the magazine. It was not holstered the way it was. I mean, honestly, it could have discharged on his person at any particular time. He was arrested, and his juvenile probation was violated accordingly. Just to kind of add to it, we were out there for quite a while because we had to actually call crime scene tech to collect the firearm. At no point did the property owner or anybody as a representative of business come up and ask if anybody wanted to be trespassed or if there was any issues that they could help us with.
Officer, did you ask the property owner, did you want him trespassed?
No, sir, we did not. In this particular case, we did not, but it's not uncommon for us to actually get not much of assistance, so that's probably on me, and I should have. And
thank you.
Officer, may I, Mr. Chair?
Recognized.
Thank you very much. Officer, this isn't the first dealing you've had with that grocery store, is it?
No, sir, it's not.
How often have you seen firearms there?
So I can actually speak generally to the case that was talked about before. It was actually my squad that actually wrote the search warrant on it. I don't know specifics as far as if you were to ask me date times or anything like that, but we did respond to that activation of multiple rounds. A vehicle was followed by aviation about approximately 3 blocks away. At that particular time, we actually arrested 1 person and then observed firearms in plain view on the property that the vehicle drove from Ybor Grocery to this property. Once we got there, a search warrant was authored, multiple firearms were recovered. As far as that night, I believe we only arrested 1, but through latent investigation, fingerprints, DNA, multiple warrants were issued. They were all adult males. They were all probably between 25 and 35 years old.
Young adults. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, officer.
And counsel, on the PowerPoint, there is a photograph of the firearm located in the juvenile's waistband from December 27th of 2020.
We see it.
The next officer to testify is going to be Officer Nabil El Madawi. He's also on the 2nd floor. He has previously been sworn. He'll be testifying about an event that took place at Ybor Grocery on April 17th, 2021.
Have you been sworn, officer?
Good evening, council members. My name is Officer Nabil Mehdawi. I have been sworn in prior to this testimony.
You may proceed.
My involvement in this case was about April 27th, 2021, around 1 in the morning. I was called in to translate from Arabic into English in reference to a call about shots fired in this area. I've been with Tampa Police Department for 4 years, and I work in District 2, and I've been a police officer for about 10 years, 5 of which I was a patrol officer and a detective. And on this day, I came in to the area, and I talked to the officers that were on scene and they told me that there has been some shots fired and they have somebody in custody. And when they wanted to talk to him about his involvement, he could not speak English. I'm a native Arabic speaker, and I conducted an interview with the suspect that they suspected was shooting a firearm in the area. I talked to the suspect, who was identified as the store clerk, and after Miranda warnings and advising him of his rights, he wished to provide a statement. And he said that he's the night clerk, and he's been working there for about a year or two. And he said on this day there was a customer or patron who comes to the store, and he is constantly a problem for them, for the store. He shoplifts and causes problems and curses the store employees. On this particular day, the store employee said that he saw this subject who he frequents them all the time. He said he came in, he shoplifted juice and chips and walked out of the store and threatened him that he's going to beat him up and slap him. And he said the store clerk took offense to that, and he picked up a firearm that they keep under the counter, walked outside, and fired several shots to scare him off so he does not come back. I remember telling the store clerk, this is not the Middle East, this is not Fallujah, you're just going to fire shots, this is the city of Tampa, and what goes up must come down, and you can actually hurt someone. So he admitted to sharing the firearm and hiding the firearm and then hiding in the back of the store. And the officer that investigated this case, when they responded, they found the store clerk hiding. They took him into custody. They recovered the same firearm. They found shell casings on the store. And just from my history in the city of Tampa and knowing the employees that work in that area, they've been telling me that this store has been a thorn in their side, a constant problem for them and a nuisance with multiple calls for service, and that nothing has changed for the past year or two, that this store has been a problem for them. If you have any questions, I may be happy to answer you.
Officer, you say you went 10:15 with the store agent?
Yes, sir. The officers did arrest him on scene.
And the gentleman spoke Arabic, you said?
Yes, he did.
And you're fluent in Arabic, correct?
Yes, I am.
So you were the translator, correct?
Yes, I did.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any questions, witness? Thank you, officer.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And counsel, there are a few photographs from that evening in the PowerPoint presentation, including the firearm that was located. Again, you'll see shell casings in front of the business. This is where the firearm was located in the store, and the firearm itself. Now, the next witness to testify is going to be Amari Elmore. He's going to be able to give information regarding the notice that he's provided, because he actually provided the Public Nuisance Abatement Board notice back in February of 2021. He is on the second floor, and he has been sworn.
You may proceed, Brother Amari.
Hi, Counsel. Amari Elmore, Tampa Police. I work in the Criminal Intelligence Bureau, part of the Tampa Police Department. I've been tasked with handling the public nuisance abatement requests. So you explained the process earlier, earlier in the day, as far as the referral forms and how it comes to me. So Detective Curtis Williams, who spoke earlier, had actually several times tried to request that they be put on notice for the abatement. So when they finally met the criteria, a letter was drafted, and he was actually given a hard copy to hand deliver. And on top of that, there were certified letters that were sent to the property owners and business owners. And that was done on, I believe, the week of February 17th, 2021. I hadn't heard from anyone related to the business except for Mr. Cifuentes on February 23rd, 21, who stated that he was a son-in-law of the property owner. He advised that, I guess she's older, up in age, and the daughter has a power of attorney. We had a conversation that really didn't go anywhere. He didn't feel that the business could do much to curb the criminal activity on the property. So after that kind of conversation went to a dead end,
He was just told that if he had any additional information or problems, he could contact Detective Williams. And that pretty much has been the end of my, my dealings with him. They've had, you know, we've been monitoring the criminal aspect of it, and I know there's been cases that have occurred on the property, but we've kind of let, since they were kind of heavy with the code enforcement part of it, we kind of let that run its course while we continue to monitor. Any questions?
Any question? Well, I'm hoping we let the code enforcement do their thing, but I'm hoping that we pick this nuisance abatement up just from what I'm hearing and seeing this evening.
Yeah, it's constantly being monitored, and that goes for all the businesses that I've sent letters to. Earlier today, you heard, you know, since 2019, since I came on in this position, we've sent like 48, we've had 48 cases come before us and sent about 30 some odd letters.
All right.
Thank you.
And Council, next on the PowerPoint slide, there's actually a social media post that we were able to find on a local social media platform on Instagram. It's a video that was dated July 31st, 2021. And I'm going to direct you, it's a short clip, but I will direct you to the right of the screen. That is Ybor Grocery, so you'll be able to see the picture of what this individual experienced on July 31st, 2021.
Every weekend.
On Center Street.
And Council, just for a better view, there is a still shot of closer up to Ybor Grocery. That's the next photograph.
Council, let me ask a question. I know you have this social media post. Does any of your witnesses of TPD have any other footage of just of this type of activity, not just this night of July 31st?
Not at this time. And the next person to testify, we're actually calling back Detective Williams.
Have there been complaints of this type of crowd, sir?
Yes, there have been several complaints.
And yes, at this time, we would just like to call back Detective Curtis Williams.
Detective Curtis Williams.
And Curtis is going to present on the next or the following photos that we're about to slide through. These were taken, I believe, by Detective Williams at various points in time as he continued to monitor the property on behalf of TPD. So let me scroll. The first one, Curtis, can you see that in the screen in front of you?
Yes.
I'll let you go ahead and explain.
That's a general picture any time of day of the store.
And the date?
February 17th, that was the day that I served Mr. Sabo notice. Again, just another driving by the store. You have people sitting in front of the store, hanging out in front of the store. It's common any time of day. Like I said before, early as 7:30, sometimes you'll have crowds seated around the south side wall there. That's off to the right.
And what's the date on this photo?
This is March 3rd, 2021. June 17th, 2021. Smaller crowd, but that's the normal location where they tend to hang out. June 22nd, parked there on the side of the business, hanging out of cars.
What side of the business is this, just so we can orient City Council?
I'm trying to look at the angle myself. I'm not exactly sure.
It looks like it's a 26th Street.
Yeah, it looks like like if the door is going to be just behind the gentleman in the red shirt.
Okay, thank you.
July 27th, just typical remnants around the edge of the wall of the building where people hang up. They had actually walked off because I pulled up.
Curtis, can you just explain a little bit what those chairs, why they were there?
Like the subjects were actually seated, and then when I first pulled up, and they walked off and left the chairs behind. But this is commonly where they hang out, and this is Mr. Sabo's part of the business here. Mr. Sabo, I believe, last meeting explained to me that he put that little chain link fence up that you see there, and I'm really not sure what that was supposed to signify. It only clarified that which part of the business was his and which part wasn't.
And Curtis, just so council can get a clear picture as well, can you explain any other efforts that you've attempted to try to get the property owner to comply?
Well, during our meeting, we discussed numerous measures as far as exterior cameras covering the entire business, proper motion censored lighting, hours, calling the police when he starts to have gatherings.
And about when did you guys have that conversation?
Well, we had it on 2 occasions. We had it on February 17th, 2021, when I served in the papers, and again when I served him the notice for this hearing.
And have you noticed any changes since those conversations?
No.
Counsel, let me ask you a question. I recall earlier testimony that code enforcement, Mr. Williams, and ATF went to the store. Is that correct?
Alcohol and tobacco.
And I'm curious, have there been any buys of any underage patrons buying beer or wine out of that store, or do we know how much alcohol or beer or wine is being sold at that store?
All I can tell you is at the time, due to the pandemic, it was very difficult to get alcohol, tobacco to even come out. Agent Kaplinger responded and assisted that day, and the store was given a warning for what appeared that they were selling Lucy cigarettes behind the counter, and there was also styrofoam cups kept, which made it appear that they may be giving those out when they sell alcohol, which history has shown that to be true. That's also a violation. So they were given 2 warnings for those things on that day. However, alcohol and tobacco has been largely focused on other things due to the pandemic.
Mr. Citro, you're recognized.
Officer, I often want to ask the same question, but I'd like to have your opinion. If this council were to say no more alcohol would be sold at the Ybor City grocery store, would that solve the problems? Or is there much more than what is just appearing on the surface with this alcohol sales?
What I can say is nothing has helped at this point. So to me, this would appear to be the next step. Discussion, dialogue has not worked. Proactivity on both code and law enforcement's part has not been able to cease it because of the lack of cooperation with the business owner or any aggressive moves by his part to deal in good business. As far as other alternatives, I think this is the next step.
Officer, I thank you for your honesty, but I have the feeling that we're going to have to do a lot more than this. Again, thank you for your honesty.
And Mr. Teacher, the reason I asked about sales, because that'll tell me what that store is really doing.
Yes, sir.
As far as how much alcohol they're selling in that store, which I pretty much in my keen mind already know the answer, being a retired veteran of the police department, knowing that Mr. Miranda is saying, look at 7 a.m., I know what happened at 7 a.m. It's called waiting for your medicine at 7 a.m. and not waiting to buy cookies at 7 a.m.
Well,
so
we heard it straight from the people that have to deal with it.
So thank you, Officer Wood.
Detective Williams, before you walk away, I have one more question for you. In your experience and in your interactions with Ybor Grocery operating as it has is it safe to say that drinking goes on site within the parking lot around the establishment?
It is.
And about how frequently would you say that it occurs?
I would say it's a daily occurrence.
Thank you. Detective Williams? Sorry that you might have walked away. If you can just walk right back. We have these last remaining photos we wanted to present to council, and I believe that you'll be able to identify them for council.
Go ahead.
Okay, just go ahead and explain what this is and when you took it.
That would be yesterday morning around 10 o'clock. I commonly drive by and just out of mere discussion, what do you think it looks like now? I was asked, and I took a roll by, and what you see here is several subjects in the parking lot. What you can't tell much from this particular photo is the vehicle to the right of the door there with the gentleman propped up against the wall. There's several subjects actually seated along the wall. You can just see the top of the head of one of them. And you know, just in the event that there were customers coming and going from the store, I waited a few minutes and came back around the block, and that would probably be the next slide. So the one gentleman in white's still out front, hanging in the parking lot. You can see better the one of the subjects that's, you know, propped up behind the vehicle there to the right. And so this is this common occurrence, people hanging out in front of the store.
And when TPD has a presence, is it safe to say they'll walk away but then
Sure.
return?
Sure. They have, in my experience. You know, during the day when I'm there, I couldn't attest to what goes on nights. And I know that the crowds are typically larger from what I hear in the evenings. So I couldn't tell you what would happen then.
Okay, thank you. I believe we are good with you right now, Detective. Thank you so much. At this time, council, we have public commenters present, and we'd like to give them the opportunity to speak. They are lined up downstairs on the second floor. I believe we might have some available as well calling into the meeting this evening. And then additionally, I wanted to direct your attention to some of the citizens who wrote letters or comments to you that have been printed and placed in your binders. So I believe there's been about 5 letters, and then that will be for you to review in addition to what you're about to hear from the public. So at this point in time, I'd like to turn it over to whoever has come present to speak with council. We'll turn it over to you guys, and just verify if you've been sworn first, please.
Yes, I've been sworn in.
State your name, please.
Good evening. I'm Maida Martinez, also known as Mimi in the community, and I'm here as a board member of Ybor Heights Neighborhood Association and the coordinator for Neighborhood Watch Group. I live at 3507 North 10th Street. I'm here to speak on behalf of all East Tampa residents concerning the vicious cycle of blight and slum and how the East Tampa Neighborhood Associations are banding together to break the cycle. With that being said, it is time our East Tampa business owners join our efforts. Ybor Grocery Store has been a source of angst for the entire surrounding community for too long. Now, I want to be fair and state I do not want to take anyone's livelihood away from them. However, it is no secret, as you have heard this evening, this establishment has been a passive instigator for allowing loud music, annoying parking, and large gatherings that have led to gun violence. This atmosphere is intensified by 0 parking signs to control car crowding. On top of that, the police cannot enforce trespassing or issue parking tickets because the store owner is indifferent, and there is not enough police officers to post on this property on a regular basis to keep our community safe. What I'm asking today is for City Council to support East Tampa and suspend alcohol sales on this property as a way to hold the store owners accountable for suppressing East Tampa from prospering. I ask the store owners, please stop turning a blind eye. What you see outside your property does not represent all of East Tampa. Most people here just want to live in peace, raise their kids in a safe place, own a home, and enjoy their community without drama. We today represent that humble, hardworking part of East Tampa. I invite you, the store owners and property owners, to attend one of the many neighborhood association meetings or CAC meetings, or consider giving back to the community by hosting a holiday meal, or join us in our Rise Up for Peace walks so you can see what East Tampa is doing. My point is, enough is enough. East Tampa is standing up for itself and asking for everyone's support. Residents, business owners, the police, city council, local politicians, and every Tampa City department. I want to thank Simone, Kendrick, and Detective Williams for standing up against blight and slum. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Council. I'm Christopher Gallagher, and I was recently sworn in just before this meeting. Everything you've seen presented to you is pretty accurate from a citizen's point of view. I often have to drive north on 15th Street or west on 26th Ave, usually on Fridays or Saturday nights just to kind of get home. It's in my neighborhood. And it's pretty aggressive. I can tell you that as of recently, activities have gotten much more aggressive. It's always easy to find parked cars and loitering people, not just on the Ybor Grocery property, but on the surrounding corners and the surrounding roadways. So it's very difficult to navigate a car, especially in the evening hours. Some of those side roads aren't lit as well as 15th are, so it's dangerous just to drive through at night. Of those parked cars, there's often loud music that's disruptive and disrespectful to the surrounding community. To be honest, I don't know how people sleep in the houses that are right next to or nearby the Ybor Grocery property. And the Ybor property, or the Ybor Grocery property and the surrounding properties are often left in disarray. And to clarify something that was mentioned a little earlier, it's not necessarily coffee cups and muffin wrappers. It's broken beer bottles, beer cans, tons of cigarettes, food trash, just left on the property and the surrounding residents. As of recently, nighttime activity has become a lot more aggressive. From my personal opinion, there are many more parked cars. There's more loitering individuals, more loitering groups. If I had to give it a guess, at least 100 people on a Friday or a Saturday night. And there's more cacophonous activities, more engine revs, a lot more yelling, much louder music than I remember a couple years ago. And as you've heard, there's already a history of gun violence here that kind of makes it a little bit more intimidating as well. And I kind of gave you guys some exhibits that should have been passed around just to kind of show you what I saw last Friday evening. I apologize I didn't number them, so I'll describe them as best I can. The first image is a picture of a bus, which appeared to me to be a party bus. And I watched about at least 10 young ladies come out of this bus and walk over to the Ybor City, or the Ybor Grocery property. I have another picture of the same party bus with some of those ladies getting out of it. So it's clearly becoming an active spot if we're gonna have buses drop people off to hang out. And then the most concerning thing I saw, this was, this was last Friday at about 11 o'clock at night, and then a few hours later, I drove by just to kind of see what was going on.
You can put them on the helmet.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Give
And there were 6 police officers, 6 TPD officers that had to disperse the large crowd that had gathered there. And to me, this image is a little difficult to see. I apologize. But I counted at least 6 officers that were here, 6 officers that were in my neighborhood, concentrated in front of one convenience store. That's hogging resources from my entire neighborhood. And so lastly, it was kind of brought up about an abatement. If council or if the prosecution wants to proceed with an abatement, you have my full support, because I always thought that the first step would be to suspend alcohol sales, but it's clearly a much larger problem. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, council. Can you guys hear me well?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Thank you. My name is Ivan Rivera, and I have been sworn in. I'm here speaking as a resident of VM Ybor. This business is in the northeast corner of VM Ybor. Although I am speaking as a resident, I want the council to know that I have served and I am serving as the chair of the VM Ybor Neighborhood Association. I mention this because I have learned through speaking to my neighbors that live in direct proximity to this location, that many of them have been afraid to be present here tonight due to possible retaliation and speaking up against this business. Personally, I'm afraid to be here speaking tonight since I'm in such a public eye within the community. I want the council to consider that there is literally a liquor store directly across the street from this convenience store. Why does there need to be 2 businesses providing alcohol? I know that you guys are questioning whether the suspension of the liquors or the alcohol use is going to make a difference, but I want you to consider that this move also sends a message to other businesses that are not being good neighbors. So to me, the bigger impact is the precedence that we send to other businesses in East Tampa. I want the council to consider that the negligence of these business owners stretches out beyond the sale of just alcohol, because it is their patrons that are zooming down our residential streets. I know a lot of times you guys hear about the ATVs and the dirt bikes. This business is kind of a hub for that behavior. And after seeing this case that has been presented tonight, I really want to urge the council to consider any other measures under their power to put a stop to this business. I personally believe only government intervention is going to help put an end to this dangerous corner. I think it's time to hold our East Tampa businesses accountable, and doing this will not only protect the residents in the community, but it's also going to protect the officers that serve and protect these communities, which I think is extremely important. So I want to thank you for your consideration. It's an honor to be in front of you, and have a good night.
Thank you, Ivan.
Good evening, council members. I am Fran Tate, and I have been sworn in. The 2 other bodies behind me are members of my board, and they're just standing here for moral support. I want to say thank you so very much for having us this evening. I am a Tampa homeowner and the president of the Jackson Heights Neighborhood Association and Crime Watch. I'd like to thank you, the attorneys, and the Tampa Police Department for this very long-awaited day. A day in which we, the community, will be given the chance to go on record to state that the loitering, illegal drug, gambling transactions, shootings, and stabbings resulting in the loss of numerous lives is no longer acceptable nor tolerated in our community. These activities have caused and continue to cause untold mental stress, anxiety, depression, and fear of public safety for all of us. With only one common denominator, and that's our local community corner stores, some of them, I might add. We feel that stronger action must be taken. I have been given permission to read a statement submitted by an East Tampa homeowner who is also my neighbor and a member of our neighborhood association. Her name is Gina Frazier, and she writes, "To whom it may concern, as a concerned neighbor of the Ybor Grocery Store located at 3401 North 15th Street, I would like to bring to your attention the issue of blocked traffic and outside loitering at this establishment. From March to mid-July, I have experienced driving delays while approaching the intersection of 15th Street and 26th Avenue. Most of the time, there is about 5 cars blocking both sides of the street and regulars assembled in the middle of the road or against the store dwelling with no action of moving. I was once stared down for driving between cars as if I was doing something wrong while an illegal transaction was being made. I felt very uncomfortable and didn't know what consequences would be taken if I continued to take this route. Therefore, I decided to change my route to Tampa Heights. I am a lifelong resident of neighboring Jackson Heights community, and it saddens me that the residents in the surrounding area have to alter their day-to-day commutes to accommodate the non-desirable activity of loitering, gambling, and drugs that occurs at the Ybor Grocery Store. I would love to experience the same feeling of safety that Tampa Heights, Seminole Heights, and other smaller communities in Tampa have when driving or walking to their corner stores to support economic growth within their neighborhood. Regards, Gina Frazier, Jackson Heights resident and Neighborhood Association member. Thank you so much, council members.
And I believe there's one commenter who is on the line right now.
Yes, I have Myra Pierce. If you could hear me, please enable your video and unmute yourself. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Please know for the record that Mr. Louis Rivera is with us tonight.
Right there.
We can't hear you, sir. You have to unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted. Hey, guys. I've been here the whole time. The first 30 minutes I was having technological problems. This is my tradition, so I appreciate it, but I've been listening to everything and whatnot. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
We have somebody on the line, Madam Deputy Clerk? All right, there she is.
Hi, can you hear me okay, Council?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my name is Myra Pierce. I am from the Ybor Heights Neighborhood Association. I'm the current president. I apologize that I couldn't be here in person tonight, but Mimi, Martinez, and Chris are part of our board. So I just wanted to talk about some personal things. I think I support everything that my neighbors have mentioned this evening. And thank you, Officer Curtis, for being a strong advocate of East Tampa. But came here to talk about my own generational trauma. I grew up closer to Sulphur Springs off Nebraska Avenue, and when I was 13, I was shot by stray gunfire. Luckily, my experience was not life-threatening, but this is generational trauma. This is what children surrounding Ybor Grocery are experiencing every day that go to Orange Grove Magnet School. You know, it spans 3 neighborhoods. And I just want to mention here that we really appreciate small businesses in East Tampa. they're crucial to our livelihood, and we understand that there's families that are involved, but there's also businesses in East Tampa that prey on generational trauma. Drug and alcohol abuse, drug sales, violence, sex work, homelessness, these are not the cause of trauma. These are the result of trauma. Okay, and if you want to relate alcohol sales to what's going on in East Tampa, that's how you have to look at it. These places create a safe haven and provide access to goods that numb this trauma. Businesses like Ybor Grocery, they sell alcohol, cheap cigarettes, cheap food, and turn a blind eye to this behavior because they profit from it. You have the choice tonight to join us as a community in mending a section of a social safety net. This isn't about suspending an alcohol license. This is about helping a neighborhood heal from that generational trauma. This is what's happening to children all across East Tampa, not just at the corner of 15th and 26th Street. I hope that you can choose to help us eliminate the blight that is causing this trauma and that's causing this perpetual violence and systemic issues that are going on in our neighborhoods. So I do ask that I'm here to support the alcohol suspension, license suspension, and also hopefully you can consider being a part of that social safety net for us tonight. So thank you, Council.
Thank you. Will there be anybody else, Madam Deputy Clerk?
That concludes the public comment speakers.
Council, let me ask you a question. We've heard a lot of testimony tonight already. We've heard from, the community who's standing up now. They're tired now. They're tired of these stores that have been, places of quick little snacks and so forth, but it also filtrates a lot of activity that is unwarranted, that has really hurt those communities. But I know the city, and I'm just asking a question. I know the city, we give licenses for people to open businesses, correct? To operate, correct?
Sorry, generally, are you speaking about just an operating license?
Operating license and
Yes.
so forth. And that is the city's right to allow, to grant that, correct?
That is correct. It's technically, if it comes to our attention, by way of a new operation that's starting in a business, yes, that would come to the city's attention, then we'd go after them and request an operating license.
So I'm just wondering, and I'm just asking a question. Some of these businesses who are operating, since the city, we gave them a privilege to have a City of Tampa license to operate. Can we take those away?
Well, I just want to clarify. I mean, clearly, we're not here for that tonight, and I can't speak to all the rules behind an operating license. We obviously assess those, and there are rules behind them. What we're here specifically for, though, is the alcoholic beverage ordinance / license that has been assessed for this property since 1979.
Okay, I understand. Putting the cart before the horse, out there. But I've got my mind is moving, Mr. Citro.
I hear you. I'm with you.
And I'm hearing the community loud and clear.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we're going to have to send a message to some of these stores to be good neighbors to the community. We want them there. We want them to thrive with their businesses. But we also want to make sure people are going to be good neighbors to the community. And I know my friend Mr. Miranda here, who talked to, who lived down there, who's driven down there. And I hear some of the stories, because I've even driven down and been afraid, to even let my window down on some of those weekend nights, because if you look at somebody wrong, you don't know what they may do because of the impact in crowds down there, which I'm like, where are they coming from? So I'm just, my mind is just pondering now. We'll take this issue I'm talking about at a later date, and we may make some type of motion at the end of the night. Yep, on that issue. But you can continue, Madam Council.
Thank you.
And Council, at this time, we'd like to turn over to the defense. There's the business owner and their representation. They're on the second floor. And I believe the business owner has previously been sworn in.
We'd love to hear from them.
And then, Council, I just want to reserve time after that so the city can present its closing.
Thank you.
And council, I will say for the record, the property owner was noticed. We did have communication with the property owner. There is an affidavit that's in the binder indicating that the property owner has no objection to council taking action in this case.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
My name is Dustin Deese. I'm an attorney at McIntyre Thanacetus, and I am, I guess, have the privilege of being here tonight on the behalf of a respondent, Ybor Grocery Stop. Behind me is my client.
Can we get CTV to get the volume up a little? Mr. Miranda can't hear. We can't hear in the council chambers. Try it again, sir.
Okay.
We got you.
All right, good. Behind me is Mohammed Sob. He is the principal of Ybor Grocery Stop. Your Honor, I've listened to the presentation. My client has listened to the presentation today. I'd like to, on behalf of my client, thank the community for their input tonight. It's certainly informative. The officers, thank them for their work and their presentation tonight as well. I think it's been quite informative, and it was good to listen to and for my client to listen to. My client very much wants to be integrated in the community and be a responsible member of the community. As has been alluded to earlier, and I'm going to defer to the council. I guess I've already led into kind of a proffer. My client has some communicative difficulty. What I'd like to do is make a proffer to the council for their consideration. I'm then, of course, would take any direct questions and then turn it over to my client. If the council has direct questions for my client, he'd be happy to answer them as well, if that's okay with the council. But as was alluded to earlier in some of the testimony you've heard, this is not necessarily, I don't think, an Ybor Grocery Stop specific issue. There's a contribution certainly by Ybor Grocery Stop, but this is a kind of an intersection issue. There is the loitering, the crowds. I don't know that they can be specifically relegated to one business over another. As was alluded to earlier, there is another convenience store directly across the street. There is a pure liquor store, a strict liquor store, catty corner from the Ybor Grocery Stop. And these crowds that we've seen in pictures and videos tonight will oftentimes meander from one lot to another, perhaps at times to avoid law enforcement personnel. If you get moved from one, you go to another. My client has had this concern for the last couple of years. They've been in this spot since 2014, operating there in the community at the same location, and would readily recognize that in the last 2 years, this problem that we've seen tonight and as witnessed by others and in the testimony and in their documents and pictures, really came to a forefront a couple of years ago with the move-in of a couple more of these businesses that have been depicted in the pictures, including the other convenience store and a couple of other businesses that will, I guess, allow these type of crowds to grow. And certainly in the pictures dictate these crowds can meander around my client's business. My client hasn't been ignorant or turned a blind eye to it. He's actually been quite active in trying to limit and best he can curb this kind of activity. And at the outset, I want to say my client in no way encourages the illicit or criminal activity that we've seen, as alluded to by all the officers today, the drugs, the guns, the gambling, etc. Excuse me. My client just simply does not encourage that and has taken steps, and maybe the community is not aware, the officers may be, but the community may not be, of those steps that my client has taken to date to try to do that. My client's quite limited in his ability to go out and disperse these crowds, especially when they get to the size and nature that we have seen in some of the pictures. They actually, I say they, my client has actually on many occasions at various points of the day, at various days of the week, called the authorities himself, called them to have them remove crowds, have them called to remove problematic individuals. So it's not as if my client isn't in a sense self-reporting and attempting to address certain of these issues. There are no loitering signs placed throughout my client's property, albeit it appears obvious from the pictures that they go largely ignored. There's an issue where my client has signed what I'll refer to as a green paper, and I may have the terminology wrong. Our law enforcement officers could probably speak to it, but my understanding of it from my client is that this paper essentially allows the authorities, the law enforcement personnel, to trespass or arrest individuals without the authorization or input of the store owner. So basically, do what you need to do. Officers will give you carte blanche, pre-approval to do that. My client has done that. My client has spoke to certain law enforcement personnel and offered one of his, as we've heard, very limited parking spaces to officers to sit in while they're on patrol. If there's various points in times where they're posting up to handle their matters or affairs or to just have a constant presence, he's offered his own limited parking space in order to have that law enforcement personnel. We talked, one of the officers earlier mentioned discussing with my client the possibility of cameras. There are and have been 4 security cameras at the property. So we have the trespass card. We've got offers of parking spaces to officers to sit. If it curbs our business, it curbs our business, but we've made that offer. The signs, we've made the calls, and of course we have, as I said, the cameras. Now, a lot of what we heard tonight goes back some period of time, and I think one of the community members got presented some photographs of last Friday. That's an interesting day. I also have a photo of Friday, but it's an important day because my client, and I think members of the community would be able to attest, and certainly the officers on patrol would be able to attest, my client made a fundamental change in his practice this last weekend. And maybe a little late, but nonetheless has been working diligently to try to resolve and curb the activities that we've seen. And he had historically been open 24 hours. He was open till 11 p.m. every night inside, and then after 11 until the morning hours, sales would be made through the window. But it was a 24-hour-a-day operation. On Saturday, that's August 21, effective on August 21, my client changed his practice, and it's remained that way since last Saturday. He now has closed his business entirely at 11 p.m. and then opens up the following morning at 7? At 7 a.m. And we have some pictures here that I'm going to put up that I think will reflect, and this goes back to maybe what the officer said earlier. One of the officers mentioned discussing this in the past, trying to change times. Maybe that would help. We've got the cameras. We've offered, again, space for a police presence. But I want to show the council since last Saturday what the change in hours has accomplished at my client's store and at this intersection as a whole. So the first picture I'm going to put up goes back to last Friday night. This is, I think, the same night of that party bus that one of the witnesses presented. Do I have that where you guys can see it?
Sideways.
I'm sorry. Let me see here. How's, okay. All right, so this is last Friday night, correct? At just about midnight. So this was still a night where he was going to be open, my client was going to be open for 24 hours. This is that same night. Now this is looking across the street. The immediate parking lot on the bottom is my client's. Across the street is that other convenience store that I referenced earlier. Again, going back to what I said, I don't think this is strictly an Ybor grocery stop issue. This is an entire area or intersection issue, certainly with these businesses in such close proximity to one another. But this is the Friday night looking across the street. This is the same night, I believe, of the party bus picture that the witness showed earlier. Now, this is also Friday night at 12:11 a.m., going into Saturday morning, I should say. Again, this is probably exemplary of what we have seen in a number of pictures, the congregation, the late night, the gathering, the meandering, and the issues that the community rightfully has. So this is that Friday night. Now I want to go to that next day, Saturday, going into midnight and then early into Sunday morning. This is when my client, for the first time since he's opened his business, closed his doors entirely at 11 p.m. No more business. The first one is at approximately 9:50 p.m. Obviously very few, a couple of cars in the parking lot. Now we get to after closing. So this is where On Friday night, we saw that large gathering, cars in our parking lot, cars across the street, the loitering, the meandering around that everybody has rightfully complained of today. Now, this is at 12:13. This would be an hour and 13 minutes after closing on Saturday night. A picture of my client's parking lot. Markedly different than Friday night, empty. Here's another picture of my client's parking lot at 12:14 a.m. Saturday evening going into Sunday morning. Empty. And this is Saturday night, one day later. Okay, so now I'm going to go to Sunday night going into early Monday morning. This is at 12:22 a.m. We've now been closed for an hour and 22 minutes. Again, my client's parking lot looking across the street. I'll also note that when we started closing at 11 p.m., certain of the other businesses, including the one we're looking at, started closing early also, following our lead. This is Sunday night. Remember the picture we saw on Friday night with all of the cars there at the same time approximately. Another picture, Sunday evening, this went at just after midnight. Again, an hour after closing, our client's parking lot empty. This one would be Monday night going into Tuesday morning. This is at 12:38 in the morning. Again, Monday going into Tuesday, that same camera that I talked about earlier, my client's parking lot, the neighboring store across the street. You could see the lack of cars, the lack of individuals, the lack of pedestrian traffic. Here's another one from the same evening at midnight. Another one that same evening. Okay, and now going Tuesday night, going into Wednesday morning, 12:24 a.m. Back to that familiar angle, my client's parking lot looking across the street, no cars, no pedestrians, no loitering. That same evening, just after midnight, empty. And the same one again. All right. This was a little earlier on August 25th. Would have been yesterday at around 8:50 p.m. This would have been about 2 hours prior to closing. And then I have one last evening going into early this morning at 12:23. Sorry. Again, this would have been an hour and a half approximately after closing. Neighboring businesses now closing. You don't have the gatherings, the cars, the pedestrians. Last night, again, early this morning. So, council, I want to just reinforce, I think, that my client since inception has recognized the problem. He has taken, albeit smaller steps in the past in coordination with law enforcement, attempting to comply with law enforcement. He certainly has never impeded law enforcement, has worked cooperatively with them, has again authorized them to trespass individuals. He cooperates when they do come out, he calls them out. And now we've taken the really large step here that I think can make a big difference. Certainly the pictures of the last 5 days demonstrate that we're on the right path. Other businesses are following. We have 5 consecutive nights of closing at 11, and we see no cars, no loitering, no meandering, an entirely different situation, 180 degrees. So if the goal is compliance, if the goal is to be a good neighbor, if the goal is, to help law enforcement do their job, I think this last effort certainly has made a marketable change, and I hope we've been able to impress that upon the council here. We want to be a good neighbor. We want to be good neighbors in the community, and we intend to do that. As far as the code violations, I'll just speak briefly to that. We've heard from the code enforcement officer, and we've seen some pictures that was dealt with by the magistrate. We and the landlord are on a deadline. I think it was stated October, middle of October, October 13. The landlord and my client are in active communication, meeting with contractors. There's a meeting tomorrow with the contractor. The property owner's intent, along with my client's intent, is to satisfy those code violations in the time provided, bring that property into full compliance. It's going to be quite an undertaking. Time, we have limited time, but we can get it done. It's going to take considerable expense. And I just think with the changes we've made and the demonstrated effort and the effects of those changes that we've seen in just a short period, we'd ask this council not take the additional step of suspending our liquor license or alcohol license and cutting off that revenue at this time when we're trying to bring this property into compliance. We're going to continue to work with the community and address these issues, and hopeful that we've been able to make a marketable stride with that last week and into this week. So I'll turn it over to the council, who I'm sure may have some questions for me or my client, Mr. Sobe, and I appreciate your time.
Mr. Renner, you're recognized.
Yes, sir. Counselor, your pictures are fantastic. You know, they say that a picture's worth 1,000 words, and you certainly have presented your client very, very eloquently and very professionally. However, like Columbo would say, I don't understand what you said earlier, that you were selling liquor through a window 24 hours.
Oh, I apologize. Our store was open 24 hours. We would sell other products in addition to alcohol, but we did not sell alcohol within the restricted time. I want to make that very clear.
That's the way it came across.
I apologize.
I heard that and I said, I'm getting confused. Not that I don't get confused quite often.
No.
Let me say that.
I'm
being straight up with you, sir.
I'm glad you clarified it.
I saw that. I said, something doesn't add up. And I let the counselor, a good counselor, doing a good job, finish his presentation. I appreciate your conversation, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Carlson, you're recognized.
Yeah, I wonder if I could ask the city a question while the business owner and his counsel are here. He mentioned that that the business owner had contacted 911 multiple times. Do we have a record of that? Does the city have a record that he in particular or someone, one of his representatives contacted 911, and if so, how often?
As far as the specific number of the times that individuals from the business have contacted 911, I don't have that number in front of me. I do know that some of the 153 events that were referenced earlier did include calls from the business. However, the overwhelming majority were calls from elsewhere.
If I, this attorney, for the record, are you representing just the store owner, or are you representing the property owner also?
I represent solely the business owner.
Solely the business owner. Thank you. Going back to our counsel, when is the date for compliance that the magistrate had ordered?
I believe it's October
10/17.
October 17th.
Yes, sorry
October
about that.
17th. This is a little over 60, a little under 60 days.
No, it's exactly 60 days from the date of their order.
It's under 60 days from here, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll ask him the question later.
Well, it's like Mr. Miranda said, a picture speaks 1,000 words, but, you know, I drive through it all the time. And yeah, you're right. You're not the only bad actor. There are a couple of others are bad actors down there as well. And we're aware that there are several other bad actors on that corner. It's unfortunate you happen to be the actor we got first. But what I can say, I'm glad you are taking some steps to close 12. But see, I know that between the hours of about 5 o'clock from Thursday to possibly Sunday, from 5 p.m. to probably around about 11, right about 12, all those folks are still congregating. So those pictures are nice that you got 12 o'clock and afterwards. But I know from seeing that from about 5 o'clock on Thursday, that's your Friday, it's pandemonium out there. So that's great that you've taken some action to close your business a little bit earlier. But, you know, we have some bigger problems that we have to solve, and we're going to need the business owners of all three of those businesses out there to understand that it's their responsibility to handle the people that patronize their store. It's their responsibility to not have people loitering on their property. It's their responsibility to have people not drinking on their property. So those things that you're trying to do are well and good, but for the total good of our community, it's still your property, be it he's the business owner or whoever the property owner is. We have some issues on your property, and we have to fix the issues reference to your property. Mr. Carlos, I saw your hand. You recognized.
Thank you. Just another question. I think our city's council, correct me if I'm wrong, you said something like the building owner did not object to the hearing, something like that. Do we know what the relationship is? Has the business owner been one of the complainants, or no?
So the property owner has not been one of the complainants that's come in. We have had conversations with counsel for the property owner. They indicated that they do not have an objection, and they did have the property owner actually sign an affidavit asserting to that, and that it can be, a copy of that is at the end of the slideshow, but it's also located in your binder at A8. You can see a copy of that.
I missed that last part. The property owner didn't have an objection to what?
To council taking action in this cause.
I will let council know that, we have communicated with the property owner as well as their counsel prior to today's hearing, and we let them know that all the notices said it was a mandatory appearance. And despite that, they still felt it was in their interest to not appear. And also, I just will note for the record here that Kendrick and I have been in, leading up to today's hearing, we've been in communication with counsel for both the property owner as well as the tenant. And there's been conflicting pieces of information between the two of them. So I don't know if they are, essentially of the understanding of the impacts that this has on each of them.
All right. My clerk needs a 5-minute break. She's been asking, so I'm going to take a recess for 5 minutes. Yes, Mr. Shelby, you recognized.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. During this recess, I'm going to ask this council and advise you to not speak amongst yourselves, nor to any witnesses or presenters. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We're in recess.
say, turn me loose. I want to do little things for you till you say, it ain't no use. I want to wake you every morning with a good morning kiss. I want to kiss you to sleep the same way, 'cause I know you like this. I want to do everything for you, 'cause that's all that a woman can do. She loves a man like I love you, and I love you. I love you. I love you. Ooh, I love you. I want to say sweet things to you till you say, I said enough. I want to stand right by your side when the going gets tough. I want to mend your broken heart till you say the hurt is gone. I want to stay with you always so that you won't be alone. I want to do everything for you, 'cause that's all that a woman can do when she loves a man like I love you, and I love you. I love you. I love you. Ooh, I love you. Yes, I do. I want to work for you every day till you say, come home and rest. I want to buy you fine things so you can look your best. I want to go with you everywhere so the world sees just what I got. I want to treat you with tender love until you say, I got to stop. I want to do everything for you. That's all that a woman can do when she loves a man like I love you. I love you. I love you. Yeah, I love you. I love you. Yeah, I love you. Say I love you. Well, I love you. I love you. Yeah, I love you. No, I love you. Yeah, I love you. Oh, hey, yeah. Oh, I love you.
One of these mornings, just about to break a day. One of these mornings, just about to break a day. That's the time for the baby. I'm gonna make my getaway. Please don't worry. Please don't worry when I'm gone. Please don't worry. Please don't worry when I'm gone. You can think back, pretty baby. One time you treat me wrong. If I had a
Citro.
Here.
Vieira.
Here.
Miranda.
Here.
And Goods.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
All right. I think we left off with the applicant, correct?
So actually, what we'd like to do, and I didn't mean to cut off Kenny here, but we'd like to just recall one of our witnesses. I believe he's still present. It's Detective Curtis Williams.
Were we finished with the attorney? I called the
and-
recess. Were we finished with him?
Sure, sorry, we can defer to Mr. Dees. I don't know if he's
We'd have to
completed.
Go back to him. I don't think we stopped with him. We let him finish. Yep.
Mr. Chair,
You're recognized.
if I may, to start off, I just want to ask this question and clarify it. Before me, I have the lease that was signed June 1st of 2014, which ended on the 31st day of May 2019. Is there still a lease that these people have with the property owner?
Yes, council member, this is Dustin Dees. That lease was renewed for an additional 5 years, so they're roughly within the second year of a 5-year lease.
Signed, or is it just a verbal agreement?
It's signed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You may continue, Mr. Dees. You have anything else to say, sir, with this case?
Your Honor, I'm sorry, counsel, I do not. You know, I think I tried to convey, again, we want to be a vital part, an important part, and a good community member here. And we've certainly have taken steps, I believe, and I'm confident that we're on the right track, and we've got others following our lead. I would, again, offer, if the council, any council member has any questions for me or want to hear from my client directly, we're ready.
Well, does your client wish to speak to us, sir?
Would you like to say anything? No, as I indicated earlier, he can do direct questions and answers probably pretty confidently, but communicating as a, kind of off the cuff is very difficult for him.
All right, sir. Any councilman have any other questions? All right, we'll refer back to legal counsel.
Thank
you, Chair. We did want to call Detective Curtis Williams back up just to speak on the issue of the green cars that defense counsel, that Mr. Dees was referencing. It's a trespass affidavit, and we can have Detective Williams talk about the significance of it, when it's applicable, and how it applies to businesses such as Ybor Grocery.
Detective Curtis Williams.
Welcome back, Detective Williams.
Curtis, I don't know if you just heard what Kenny was going through. Do you want to restate it for him?
In reference to the green placards?
Yes.
Yes.
So, in explanation, the attorney had said that his client had signed a trespass authorization giving the police carte blanche to enforce however they see fit. That's not exactly how it works. Just to clarify, the trespass authorization is signed by the property owner or business owner to give police the authority to act when the business and the business owner is not present. So really this agreement is mute during a 24/7 operation. Business property, like the councilman said, is a property owner's responsibility. So they would still need to call in and request services if it wasn't something that came up upon a police investigation. But those green placards, they don't negate the need for the property owner to request services.
Thank you, Curtis.
Any questions for this witness? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, counsel. The last thing is actually closing, and if the current slide could be brought up. Thank you. And counsel, this is under 27-318C1. That is our code section that details what is required in order to revoke or suspend the sale of alcohol at a location for a cause. There are several enumerated sections of the code that several different reasons that we could move to suspend. However, the city in this case is moving on 3. Those are sections B, C, and D. Maintaining a nuisance on the property, engaging in or allowing disorderly conduct on the property, or having secondary negative effects on the community. In this case, Ybor Grocery has done all 3. So there are factors that apply to all 3. The drug sales that take place on the property, that is a public nuisance because individuals are going to, you heard a 911 call from an individual who tried to go to the store to buy some coffee or some snacks in the morning. He couldn't get to the store, he couldn't get in the store without someone offering him drugs, trying to sell him drugs on his mere walk into and out of the convenience store. And his statement was that this is an ongoing issue. So the individuals who are trying to engage and actually utilize the business for normal business sales and normal business practices with a normal convenience store can't do so because of the activity that the business owner is allowing to take place on the property. When it comes to disorderly conduct, either engaging in or permitting, you saw the video of the congregation on the site, on the property. You saw the number of individuals who were there. You heard testimony about party buses that are there, that with individuals blocking traffic so individuals can't travel to and from where they need to be. And engaging in the disorderly conduct, can't be exemplified more than an employee of the business firing a weapon in order to try to scare a potential shoplifter. These are actions that cannot be taken by a reasonable business. The ability to sell alcohol is a privilege. It's not a right. So the people who are able to do that should be responsible, reasonable business owners and responsible, reasonable members of the community. Ybor Grocery has proven over the course of time that they have not been. Now, you heard about several different instances. The first instance was a police report from March of 2020. So they were first put on notice about criminal activity from arrests that took place in March of 2020. Subsequent to that, they received a notice for the Public Nuisance Abatement Board that they've had because they've had so much criminal activity, they were put on notice in February of this year that the activity has risen to the level that it qualifies for public nuisance abatement. It took from March of 2020 through February of 2021, and no action was taken. The action that was taken within the past 5 days. They had an opportunity to take action before. Now, when we're talking about what can be done, the city council can suspend the permit, can suspend the ability to sell alcoholic beverages on the property for up to 30 days for a first violation. And there are 3 things that council can consider in making a determination as to how long they want to issue the suspension. The first is the gravity of the violation. This is a significant violation. The number of drug sales that take place on the property, the number of gun violence that took place on the property, the fact that gun violence took place on the property, and when law enforcement is trying to work with the business to get the video surveillance to see who the perpetrators were, they had difficulty. That should be a situation, if this is a reasonable, respectful business, there should be no question. If a shooting took place outside their property, there's no question that they will provide as much assistance to law enforcement as possible. And the first thing that they can do is provide access to that video surveillance system so law enforcement can rapidly try to identify the individuals who were involved in the shooting and make an arrest in order to try to keep the community safe, because that shooting just took place. And this is a situation, you heard testimony that they don't do that. They haven't given law enforcement the support that they need. They've completely abdicated their responsibility to keep criminal activity off of their property. So they've made changes in the past 5 days, but the calls have been for the past 18 months. So when you're talking about evidence over the past 18 months versus evidence from a couple hours over the past 5 days, the overwhelming amount of evidence shows that they've been an irresponsible business owner, an irresponsible member of the community, and therefore they've been in violation of 27318C. So the second factor is any actions taken by the violator to correct the violation, which is what I just was talking about. In 17 months and 25 days, they did nothing. They did nothing. And you heard testimony from the individuals, from officers who have been in the community, who've been in that district, who've patrolled that district, who responded to that location on numerous occasions, and they saw no change. They saw no change because they didn't take any action until this past weekend. So when we're talking about any actions taken, they took no actions for a year and a half, and they want the actions of the past 4 or 5 days to erase everything that's taken place over the last 18 months. And I'm asking council not to find that. I'm asking council to find that they've been in violation of sections B, C, and D. And I'm asking council to suspend their license for the maximum 30 days. The third factor is any previous violations committed by the violator. And this is the first time they've been put on notice for a violation of this nature. This is the first time that we brought the alcoholic beverage permit suspension to them. So there's no priors. That's why the maximum is the 30 days. Now they've been put on notice as to criminal activity that's taken place on their property. They've been put on notice about drug sales. They've been put on notice about gun violence that they've not only witnessed and allowed to take place on the property, but engaged in, and they haven't taken the action they've needed to. And so I'm asking council to take action and to find them in violation of Code Section 27318 and to suspend their suspend their ability to sell alcohol at 3401 North 15th Street for the full 30 days starting tomorrow. And just for the record, this is the affidavit that I referenced earlier that's in tab A8 that shows that the property owner has no objection to council taking action as we've requested.
And council, I just wanted to also add, we have a prepared motion. If you are looking for the language, we have it prepared and ready here, and we can distribute to you if requested.
Mr. Maniscalco, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I believe that we've heard above and beyond more than enough evidence. I've seen it. I know this area. I know the city. I drive through it. You know it. It's your district. Many of us do. Usually I'm a very lenient person in life in general. I believe in forgiveness and all that stuff, but we're looking at facts here. We're looking at, when I heard the business owner went out and fired warning shots in the air, the first thing I thought of, one of the Western movies that I like. I like those old Western movies, but this isn't the Wild West. This isn't the 1800s. This is the city of Tampa. This is in the middle of neighborhoods. We had testimony from residents, neighborhood leaders. We saw the photographs. It's not just that side of the street, it's the other side of the street. This is a trickle-down effect that is affecting a larger part of the area more than just that parcel. The gentleman that made the call, going to get a cup of coffee in the morning or in the daytime, and you have drug dealing situations. You have testimony from police officers witnessing those drug deals. I have my personal thoughts on marijuana and the legality of marijuana, but we're talking crack cocaine and meth. We're talking about harder drugs that are listed as, whatever, higher class felonies, however the drugs are listed beyond marijuana. This isn't peanuts. This isn't a minor situation. This is something that is affecting the livelihood of that neighborhood, the safety of that neighborhood. Weapons, we saw the firearms, different types. Those are serious weapons. We're not talking about little pocket pistols. I already mentioned, business owner going out and shooting into the air. What if a stray bullet would have killed somebody? Now we're talking death, potential death. I'm ready to move on this. I'm ready to, and I know there's a prepared motion, to find the business owners in violation of 27-318C1. I know that we can begin the suspension with 30 days. I see that as a warning. If things don't get better, go ahead and try me. I'll take it to 60 to 90, however it takes, because this is not going to get better unless we really bring the hammer down. The evidence speaks for itself. I can't be lenient or nice on something like this. So I'm ready to move in the situation that you in the direction that you recommend, and I hope that council agrees with me. We suspend the alcoholic beverage sales for 30 days. I know that they've made improvements in the last few days, but 17 months, I believe you've mentioned. And now all of a sudden, you know, folks get scared and they want to make things better. But we'll start with 30-day suspension. If it doesn't get better, we take it further until this is remedied. Thank you.
Mr. Citro, you recognize.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Personally, I would like to see this coincide with the order handed down by the magistrate from Code Enforcement Board. Again, I ask the question, if we take away the license, just how much good are we going to do? If this store owner and the property owner want to have skin in the game and they want to show that their business is vital to this area, I would like to see it coincide with the code enforcement. Can't do that. I understand we only can give 30 days to first offense. But I want to know, when does this store owner go back on the clock? If these cases of drugs, violence, guns, and again starts up tomorrow, then is that store owner back on the clock? Or do these violations start up again after the 30 days? Even though, let me finish. Even though we are going to suspend, hopefully we will suspend his license for 30 days, is he still on the clock? Go ahead, now you can give me your answer.
I just apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to clarify, we're not going to take it away. This is just for the suspension. And you're
Six,
saying...
one half dozen the other. He's suspended, hypothetically. He's suspended for 30 days.
And he's back on the clock after that end of that 30 days.
That's what I need to know. So, if I may, I will second Councilman Maniscalco's motion, if that is a motion.
I thought I saw Mr. Carlson's hand.
No, I agree, and I was going to second also. I think we need to make it 30 days.
Well, I think if that's a motion, you have to clarify the motion when the 30 days start. There was no clarity on that. 2 days.
And I'd also like you guys to state specifically what subsections.
Yeah, I think you have to put it on the record, on the preponderance evidence that was given by the officers, the neighborhood, and the pictures that were submitted into the record. Correct. In case there's a legal disposition later on in life.
And Council, I would ask for both the binders and the PowerPoint presentation to become part of the record.
As well as the motion that was just handed to you.
So we make a motion to receive and file all documents, the binder, all testimony, everything that the clerk has recorded. So I'll make a motion that everything that was said, anything that was printed, be made part of the record.
Mr. Scalco has made a motion. Mr. Miranda, second. Roll call vote.
Carlson?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Dingfelder? Citro?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
And Goode.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously with Dingfelder being absent.
All right.
Mr. Shelby, you wanted this read into the record, correct? The actual.
Mr. Chairman, if you're ready, and if council is ready to read the motion as requested, I'd ask that you, you've already heard the comments of Mr. Maniscalco, but if you would close the public hearing and
Mr. Chair, may I say
you
something?
recognize, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, sir. It's odd being here virtually. Thank you. No, I just wanted to say, just to state my vote. I obviously will support the motion. I agree with the substantive sentiments that have been said so far by council members on this. I salute everybody that came here to speak, especially folks from the neighborhood. One gentleman talked about, you know, how his being here potentially puts him in some risk, et cetera. You know, there's just a lot going on. One of the things that stuck, there are two things that stick out to me, which is number one, that the partnership that the neighborhood has with law enforcement here to make things better. And if you're a business, second, if you're a business in an area that may have some challenges, your job is to be part of the solution and to be a stakeholder. The people who came here tonight and spoke are stakeholders. Your job is not to make things worse. Your job is not to exacerbate the problem or be a part of the problem. And that's why we're here, quite frankly. So I think all the comments are very well placed. I'm supportive, and I'm prepared to support the motion. Thank you, sir.
All right. I'm gonna wait till after we've closed before I make some final comments, because I've got some final comments I do want to say. Mrs. Maniscalco, you want to go ahead and
Do we
and make your motion?
move to close the hearing?
Move to close.
All right, move to close.
Mr. Maniscalco moves to close. Mr. Morano, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mhm.
All right, so Mr. Maniscalco, we'll go with your motion verbatim with what was been given by the legal department.
All right, I'd like to go ahead and make this motion. The motion is, the establishment operating as Ybor Grocery located at 3401 North 15th Street, Tampa, Florida, has been found in violation of Section 27-318C, subsections B, C, and D. B, the maintaining of a nuisance on the property. C, engaging in or permitting disorderly conduct on or about the property. D, operation of the establishment in a manner that repeatedly or on an ongoing basis has negatively secondary effects on surrounding property. Based on these violations, City Council moves to suspend the ability to sell alcoholic beverages at 3401 North 15th Street, Tampa, Florida for 30 days. The 30 days will begin tomorrow, August 27th, Friday, 2021.
Second.
With motion, Mr. Maniscalco, second by Mr. Citro. Roll call vote.
Sierra,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes?
Dingfelder, Carlson,
Yes.
and Goode.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Dingfelder being absent.
All right, Mr. Chair, we need to close now, right? Yeah, he already closed it. He already closed it. All right, thank you. Let me say, I know you guys are new to the attorney's office, and I can look at this book because I've done investigations, and you did your homework. You put together a sound package. You were able to get those neighbors in those neighborhoods who've been afraid for a long, long time. And it took a lot for them to come here to show their faces on camera that they didn't want to take it anymore. So they're speaking up for those folks in that community over there that are afraid. And I know they are afraid. I've seen them. I've got those calls. So I want to thank everybody who had the guts and courage to stand up. We don't want to hurt any businesses. We want businesses to thrive. But we can't have the violence at these places. We can't have the laundering. We can't have the drugs. We just can't have that. It's not good for communities. And I'm going to be honest, in no other communities we have it are in our marginalized communities. There are no liquor stores in other communities, right inside the communities. There are no other small convenience stores like that sell beer and alcohol. Our marginalized communities are the only one to have because, we're food deserts. And those convenience stores do bring a lot to the community. But when it becomes a detriment, when it becomes alcoholism, because that's what happens at 7 o'clock in the morning. I know. I used to get up at 5 o'clock and they're at 6 o'clock waiting for their medicine, those stores to open. So I do understand we have a lot of addictions and a lot of health concerns in those communities, but this council is empowered to make some action and some changes. And I'm glad that the police department and your office found fit to hear our plight to get something done so we can help those residents. And hope it's going to send a message to some of those other stores in those communities around 15th Street, 34th Street, 40th Street. I can name a bunch of them. And hope it's going to send a message that we're not going to tolerate it. You have to take control of your patrons. It is your responsibility. It is not ours. You are given a license and a privilege. It is a privilege to have a liquor license. It is a privilege to have a City of Tampa permit license to open a business. It is a privilege. This council is going to be looking at some other aspects with dealing with permits as well, because we need to send a message that we have to be good business owners because we want good business and so does the community. So I thank you for your work. I thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Any other comments, any council members? We can let these 5 folks go?
I'll go to bed.
All right. Motion to all receive and file anything with Mr. Maniscalco, Mr. Miranda, all in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned.
Thank you.